Welcome everyone to our first lecture in this comprehensive sociology series. If this is your very first encounter with sociology, then you are in exactly the right place. Imagine that today you and I are both learning how to see the world again, but through a completely different lens, a sociological lens. Sociology is one of those subjects that reshapes how you think about your own life. It begins with simple questions. Why do we behave the way we do? Why do people live in groups? Why do societies have rules? And why do we follow them? Even when no one is watching, every small habit you have, how you dress, speak, or even think, carries the invisible fingerprint of society. Let's start with the literal meaning. The word sociology comes from two roots: Latina, socius meaning companion or associate, and Greek logos meaning study or reasoning. So, literally, sociology means the study of companionship, or more accurately, the scientific study of human society and social relationships. Not that, now that sounds simple, but let's unpack it slowly. Sociology studies how humans connect, how they organize into families, communities, institutions, and nations. It studies what people share, their culture, language, and traditions, but also what divides them: inequality, discrimination, and conflict. Think of society as a web. Each of us is a node connected to others by invisible threads of relationships. When one part of the web moves, the whole thing vibrates. Sociology tries to understand those vibrations, how one change, say a new technology or law, after millions of lives in pattern, affects millions of lives in pattern we predict and explain. Now, when I say sociology is a science, I don't mean it works with test tubes and microscopes. It's a social science. That means it uses observation, data, reasoning to study human behavior systematically. For example, imagine two sociologists studying poverty. One collects data about income and jobs, the other interviews families about how poverty affects their self esteem and relationships. Both are doing science. The first uses quantitative method, the second qualitative. But both rely on logic, evidence, and theory. Sociology is scientific not because it deals with chemicals or numbers, but because it seeks patterns, recurring relationships that help explain social life. It doesn't just describe what happens, it asks why it happens, how it changes, and what consequences it brings. Let's put it into perspective. Sociology covers everything that involves human interaction. It studies societies large and small, from the United Nations to your own group of friends. Areas of sociological studies include families and kinship systems, education, economy and politics, religion, culture and beliefs, population, cities and migration, crime, gender and inequality, technology and media, globalization and social change. So, whether you are analyzing fashion trends on Instagram or the power structure of world politics, you are looking at society, and that brings you into the field of sociology. Now, what does that word social means in sociology? It doesn't mean just being friendly or outgoing. In sociological terms, social refers to anything that happens whenever human beings interact and form relationships. For example, even something as small as stepping aside on a busy sidewalk is a social action. You move to the right because you've learned it's polite. You didn't invent that rule, society taught it to you. Sociologist Dorothy Smith calls this the ongoing coordinating of individuals' activities. So, sociology pays attention to the ordinary, small gestures, greetings, customs, because these daily interactions reveal how our whole social system works. One of the first mental shifts you'll experience in this course is realizing that sociology isn't just common sense. Many people assume that because we live in a society, we already understand it. But that's like saying because we breathe air, we know atmospheric chemistry. Common sense is based on personal beliefs, traditions, or experiences. Sociology, on the other hand, tests ideas against evidence, surveys, observation, historical data, or social experiments. For example, many people might assume crime happens only because individuals are bad or immoral. But a sociologist will ask what conditions in the environment contribute to crime. Are employment, poor housing, or discrimination part of the cause? In sociology, we don't stop at moral judgment. We keep digging until we understand the underlying structure. So, why does this matter? Because understanding society helps us solve real problems: poverty, sexism, education inequality, even climate change. All these issues are social in nature. They deal with how people relate, cooperate, and make collective choices. Sociology gives us three major skills. Number one, critical thinking, seeing beyond surface appearances. Number two, empathy, understanding people from different backgrounds and contexts. Number three, perspective, connecting your personal life to global processes. For example, why do you speak a certain language? Why do you celebrate certain festivals? Why do governments exist at all? Each of these has a sociological explanation rooted in culture, history, and interaction. This brings us to one of most powerful tools you'll learn, the sociological perspective. Is the ability to see the strange and the familiar, to look at everyday life not as normal, but as something that has social causes behind it. For example, why do offices why do office workers wear formal clothes? Why are weddings expensive? Why do people shake hands instead of bowing? Now, none of these are natural behaviors. They are cultural expectation that reveal social meaning. With this perspective, we stop taking things for granted. We start asking who benefits from this rule? Who made it? What happens if we change it? That's how sociology becomes a tool, not just for knowledge, but for awareness. So, to summarize, sociology is the systematic and scientific study of society and social interaction, concerned with small scale actions and large scale structures, focused on explaining patterns in human behavior, different from common sense because it uses evidence and theory, us understand designed to help us understand ourselves by understanding our society. In the next section, we'll go deeper in, into how sociology emerged, who created it, what problems it was born to solve, and how the modern world forced people to rethink society itself. That story begins in 19th century Europe, with the Industrial Revolution, political upheavals, and a few bold thinkers who decided that society deserves scientific study. Alright, now we have a sense of why we need sociology. Let's ask the central question of the lecture: what exactly is sociology? It might surprise you that there's no single definition that everyone agrees on, because sociology itself studies how human life is always evolving. Let's start simple. Sociology is the scientific and systematic study of society, social behavior, and relationships. That phrase, scientific and systematic, is important. Sociologists don't just give opinions or moral lectures, they observe, collect data, analyze, and look for patterns in how people and groups behave. They try to build theories that explain why those patterns occur and how they can change. Think of society as a huge living organism and sociology as its anatomy and physiology. Doctors study how the human body works. Sociologists study how social bodies function. Families, schools, governments, economies, all interacting systems keeping society alive. Now, what is a society itself? A society is a group of people who share a common culture and territory, who regularly interact and depend on one another. And depend on one another. It's not just it's not just a crowd or country. It's a structured system of relationships. For example, India is a society because it has shared institutions like law, religion, education, and governance. Inside India, there are smaller societies too, rural villages, caste groups, political organizations, each with its own norm and rules. Sociology studies all these layers, from micro level face to face interactions to macro level institutions that govern millions of people. There is a critical question people often ask: can we study society scientifically? Yes, not in the way we study atoms, but by applying the same logic. Sociologists use what we call empirical methods, methods based on observation and evidence. This means they go into the field, collect data, observe families, conduct interviews, count population, and then look for general laws or regularities. French philosopher Auguste Comte was the first to insist on this. He said society has social laws just like nature has physical laws. Later, other sociologists refined this idea. Max Weber, for instance, argued that we also need interpretation to understand the meanings behind people's action. So, sociology uses both the objectivity of science and empathy of interpretation. Classic definitions of sociology. Auguste Comte in 1839. Sociology is the science of human association. Emile Durkheim. It is the study of social facts, things that exist outside individuals but exert control over them. Max Weber said it is the science which aims at interpretive understanding of social action. Harry M. Johnson said it deals with social groups, their structures, processes, and interrelations. McIver and Page said sociology is about social relationships, the network of relationships we call society. These definitions look different, but they all circle around one core idea. Sociology is about human relationships. Every idea, law, institutions we have exists because humans created and maintain it. Sociology operates at three main levels, often compared to zooming in and out on a camera. Microsociology. This focuses on small groups and everyday interactions. Like friends influence each other's behavior or how people behave differently when they think they are being watched. Mesosociology, mid range view. It studies communities, organizations, or institutions such as how schools maintain discipline or how workplaces shape gender roles. Macro sociology, This examines large scale patterns like economic inequality, migration, political systems, or cultural change. Using these lenses helps sociologists connect the tiny detail of everyday life with the larger structure of the world. You might wonder what exactly does sociology study? Let's list it in broad terms. First is social structure, how society is organized, its institutions, roles, hierarchies. Next is social relationships, bonds between people like friendships, marriage, communities. Next would be social control. It contains the norms, laws, and sanctions that guide behavior. Next major area of study in sociology is social institution. It persists systems like family, education, religion, law, and economy. Next major area is social processes. It's cooperation, competition, conflict, assimilation, socialization. Next major area is social change, how societies evolve, revolutions, globalization, digital transformation. Each of these areas has its own subfields, for example, sociology of education, medical sociology, urban sociology, and even digital sociology that studies social life online. So, sociology touches everything: your phone use, job roles, political opinions, even fashion trends. You might still ask, why should I study sociology? Because it turns ordinary experience into powerful insights. Let's take some examples. Why do we get nervous during job interviews? Because we are responding to social expectation. Why do traffic patterns exist even without police at every corner? Because shared norms regulate behavior. Why are some jobs paid more than others? Because society values certain roles over others. Why do protests, revolutions, or trends explode? Because social change follows collective feelings and networks. The moment you can explain these patterns instead of just observing them, you are already thinking sociologically. Next would be sociology is often called the mother of social sciences because it links with all of them. For example, sociology and economics. Economics studies production and wealth. Sociology studies how wealth affects class and lifestyle. Political science studies power in government. Sociology studies how power operates in families, media, and workplaces. Anthropology studies ancient and tribal culture. Sociology focuses on modern and industrial societies. Psychology studies individual minds. Sociology studies how the mind is shaped by social context. History studies past events. Sociology studies the recurring patterns behind those events. So, sociology don't replace these fields, it connects them. It builds a bridge between individual and collective, between thought and structure. Next would be applying sociology from theory to practice. Sociology isn't only theory, it is also applied science, meaning it can improve society directly. Sociologists work in policymaking, education reform, community planning, and even AI ethics today. For example, sociologists help design social media guidelines to reduce misinformation. They advise governments on reducing inequality. They work with NGOs studying gender, poverty, or health outcomes. Even businesses hire sociologists to understand consumer behavior and workplaces culture because every product or policy ultimately interacts with people. So when we ask what is sociology, we are really asking what connects people and what drives these connections. Sociology answers by showing that human life, from love to war, from markets to memes, is shaped by invisible patterns called social structures. To summarize in one line, sociology is the scientific, systematic, and interpretive study of human society, how it is organized, how it changes, and how individuals and groups interact within it. In the next section of this lecture, we'll explore how sociology came into existence, the story of industrial revolution, changing societies, and the thinkers who built this field. That's where Auguste Comte, Marx, Durkheim, and Weber enter the scene. Now that we understand what sociology studies and why it matters, it's time to explore one of the field's most powerful ideas, the sociological imagination. The idea was developed in 1959 by sociologist C. Wright Mills, and it changes the way we think about our lives and society forever. What is the sociological imagination? At its core, the sociological imagination is the ability to see the connection between individual experiences and larger social forces. Mills famously wrote, "Neither the life of an individual nor the history of a society can be understood without understanding both." That means to truly understand what happens to any one person, we have to see the bigger picture, the social, political, and historical context in which they live. One of the central lessons Mills teaches is the difference between personal troubles and public issues. Personal troubles are challenges you face that seem private, like losing a job or failing an exam. These troubles happen within your immediate relationships and personal control. But when many people experience the same trouble, for example, millions losing jobs during a recession, the problem becomes a public issue. Public issues require understanding the role of social structure, like the economy or education system. Example: imagine your friend Raj is unemployed. You think Raj must not be skilled enough. But a sociological imagination pushes us to ask, is Raj's unemployment a result of personal failure, or is it part of a broader pattern caused by economic downturns, automation, or government policies? Connecting Raj's biography with historical and social forces helps us understand why unemployment happens and possibly how to fix it. The sociological imagination also challenges us to make the familiar strange. We tend to accept daily routines and social norms as natural or inevitable, like why we work 9 to 5, why we celebrate certain holidays. But sociology makes us ask, who benefits from these social arrangements? How did they come to exist? Could they be different? This way of questioning challenges or our assumptions and reveal hidden power dynamics. Mills said the sociological imagination links three concepts: history, the broad social, economic, and political forces shaping society; biography, an individual's personal experience and choices; social structure, the organized relationships, institutions, and roles that shape behavior. Understanding how history influences individual biography helps us see that no one is free from society's effects. This perspective helps us become both more empathetic and more aware as citizens. Why it matters. Mills argued that many social problems stem from a lack of sociological imagination. Without it, people see problems as personal failures instead of recognizing systematic causes. This has consequences. Lack of understanding leads to social apathy, frustration, or misplaced blame. A well developed sociological imagination, on the other hand, empowers us to recognize social injustices, see opportunities for social change, and become active participants in shaping society rather than passive observers. To cultivate your sociological imagination, try these mental exercises. When you face a personal problem, ask what social structures contribute to it. When you observe a social trend, think about how individual choices and historical forces interact. Question norms and consider who benefits or loses from them. To sum up the sociological imagination, it connects personal biography with social history. It distinguishes between personal troubles and public issues. It encourages questioning the naturalness of social life. It strengthens critical awareness and social empathy. This concept is foundational for our entire course. Every lecture from now on aims to build your sociological imagination further, helping you see yourself clearly within the larger society. In the next part, we'll explore the birth of sociology, how this discipline emerged to make sense of a rapidly changing world. Now that we have explored what sociology studies in the sociological imagination, it's time to take a historical journey back to the 19th century when sociology emerged as a distinct field of study. This was a period of major social upheaval and transformation. The Industrial Revolution was reshaping economies and societies. Monarchies and old institutions were challenged by revolutions. Science was rapidly advancing, and thinkers began wondering, could we study society with the same rigor as natural sciences? The answer came from a French philosopher named Auguste Comte, often called the father of sociology. Auguste Comte was born in 1798 in Montpellier, France. He lived through times of political chaos following the French Revolution, which deeply influenced his thinking about society. Comte's key insight was that society should be studied scientifically, just like the natural world. He coined the term sociology in 1838, combining socius, meaning companion, and logos, meaning study or logic. Initially, he called it social physics, reflecting his ambition to find natural laws governing social life. Comte aimed to create a discipline that could unify knowledge about society and guide social reform. One of Comte's major contributions was his philosophy of positivism, the idea that true knowledge must be based on observable empirical facts rather than speculation of theology. He believed societies progress through three intellectual stages in their quest for knowledge. First is the theological stage. Early societies explained the world through gods and spirits. People believed every event was caused by supernatural forces. Second is the metaphysical stage, when abstract philosophical ideas replaced religious explanations. Concepts like nature and essence dominated. Third is the positive stage. Scientific observations and reason became central. People began to seek explanation through facts and laws. Comte believed modern society was in the positive stage and needed scientific sociology to understand and improve itself. Comte divided sociology into two branches: social statics, the study of social order, how society maintains stability and cohesion despite changes, and social dynamics, the study of social change, how societies evolve and transform over time. This distinction remains important today. Sociologists study both how societies hold together and how they unravel or reform. Comte's vision of sociology. Comte saw sociology as a powerful tool for social reform. He believed sociologists could guide governments and societies toward progress by understanding social laws. He famously said, "Love as principle, order as basis, progress as end." This motto captured his ideal society governed by rational, scientific principles, fostering harmony and development. He even envisioned a religion of humanity as secular faith to replace traditional religion, focused on altruism and social responsibility. However, his vision was controversial and seen as extreme by many contemporaries. Comte's legacy and criticism. Comte laid the groundwork for sociology by proposing sociology as a distinct science, by emphasizing scientific methods and empirical observation, by introducing key concepts like social statics and dynamics, inspiring later sociologists to study society systematically. However, his work was not without criticism. Some argued his views were too rigid or idealistic. His scientist priests idea was seen as authoritarian. Others criticized his lack of empirical research. Despite its flaws, Comte's vision inspired important thinkers like Emile Durkheim, Karl Marx, Max Weber, who expanded and refined sociology into the discipline we study today. The birth of sociology can't be seen in isolation. Industrialization caused massive urbanization, disrupting old ways of life. New social problems, poverty, crime, inequality emerged. Political revolutions challenged authority and tradition. All these changes created a need to understand how and why societies change and how social order is possible. Comte's work was a response to these challenges, an attempt to bring clarity and scientific order to a chaotic modernizing world. So, in summary, sociology was founded in the 19th century amidst rapid social change. Auguste Comte coined the term sociology and founded positivism. Comte proposed society progresses through theological, metaphysical, and positive stage. His division of social statics and dynamics laid conceptual foundations. Comte envisioned sociology as a science to guide social progress. His ideas influenced generation of sociologists despite critique. Now we will look at the last major part of our first lecture. So far we have explored what sociology is and the sociological imagination and how sociology began as a scientific discipline. Now let's understand the breadth and depth of sociology, what exactly sociology studies, and how far its reach goes into social life. What is the subject matter of sociology? Sociology's subject matter is wide ranging. It's essentially the study of human social life and social relationships. It focuses not just on individuals, but on the patterns and structures that shape how individuals behave and relate to each other. It asks how our society is organized, what forces keep societies together or tear them apart, how do individuals learn, and practice, culture, and norms. What creates social inequality and conflict? How do societies change over time? Sociology systematically studies social behavior, its origins, development, organization, and institutions. It is a social science employing empirical research methods to understand social order, disorder, and change. Sociologists analyze behaviors and relationships on different roles: micro level, meso level, macro level. Major themes and area in sociology. Sociology scope incorporates diverse themes such as social institutions, core structured system like the family, education, religion, economy, politics, legal systems. Sociology studies their structures, function, and impact on individuals and groups. Social groups and organizations, from intimate groups like families to large organizations. Who belongs, how roles are defined, and how power operates. Socialization, how individuals learn societal norms, values, roles, and culture, often through family, education, and media. Social stratification, the study of hierarchical layers in society based on class, caste, gender, race, and ethnicity, including how inequality is created and maintained. Social change and development, how societies evolve due to technology, social movements, globalization, and cultural shifts. Culture, the shared beliefs, systems, symbols, values, language, and material objects that bind societies. Social interaction, the networks and patterns of day to day human interaction, both verbal and non verbal, deviance and social control. How societies define norm and handle violations through laws and sanctions and institutions. Sociology uniquely studies the whole spectrum of social life, synthesizing insights from economics, political systems, psychology, anthropology, history, and more. While psychology focuses on individual minds and economics on markets, sociology bridges these by exploring how individuals and groups shape and are shaped by broad social structure. When applying sociology, you might study why education outcomes differ across social classes, how migration changes urban neighborhoods, how gender roles vary in different cultures, the impact of digital technology on social relationships, causes of and responses of social movements. Sociology recognizes the interdependence of individual lives and social forces. It explores how social institutions, cultural beliefs, economic systems, and political systems intertwine to influence human life. This wide ranging scope enables sociology to address contemporary challenge in health, environment, governance, race relations, and globalization. Now, let's move to the final segment of today's lecture, where we will explore some of the fundamental concepts that form the backbone of sociology. These concepts are the building blocks that will help you understand social life and patterns that guide human behavior in society. Let's begin with the concept of society. Sociologists define society as an organized group of individuals who live together in a defined geographical area, interact with each other, and share a common culture. But more than a physical community, society is a complex web of social relationships, meaning how people behave towards and influence one another, both in small groups like families and large structures like institutes. Example, when a teacher enters a classroom, students' behavior changes. They show respect by standing up. This change is based on social relationship between teacher and students. Demonstrating. Next is culture, the shared beliefs, norms, values, customs, languages, symbols, and material objects that define a group or society. Culture guides how people behave, think, and interpret the world around them. It is learned and passed down from generation to generation. For instance, the way we celebrate birthdays or holidays reflects cultural norms and values which differ between societies. Norms are the socially accepted rules or expectation about behavior. They tell us what is considered acceptable or unacceptable within a society. Values are more general beliefs about what is right, good, or desirable, like honesty, respect, or freedom. When someone breaks a social norm, like talking loudly in a library, they may face disapproval or sanctions. These norms help maintain social order. Status and role. Status refers to a recognized social position within society. For example, being a student, teacher, parent, or leader. Roles are the expected behaviors associated with a status. For example, the status of teacher comes with roles like teaching, mentoring, and evaluating students. Every individual occupies multiple statuses and must perform the corresponding roles, which makes social life organized. Socialization is a lifelong process through which individuals learn and internalize the culture, norms, values, and roles of their society. It starts from infancy and continues throughout life, mainly through interaction with family, schools, peers, media, and other institutions. Example, children learn language, manners, and moral values from their parents and peers, which shape their identity and sense of belonging. Social groups and social institutions. Social groups are collections of individuals who interact frequently, share a sense of identity, and follow certain norms. Examples include families, friendship groups, work teams, and religious congregation. Social institutions are established systems and structure like the family, education, government, religion, and economy that organize society and regulate behavior over time. Each institution carries unique roles and expectations. For instance, the family nurtures and socializes children, while the government maintains law and order. Social stratification and inequality. Sociology also studies social stratification, the hierarchy arrangement of individuals in society based on factors like wealth, power, prestige, caste, or ethnicity. This hierarchy leads to inequality, differences in access to resources, and opportunity. Understanding stratification is key to studying social justice, mobility, and conflict within societies. Finally, sociology looks at social change, how societies evolve due to technological advancement, cultural shifts, political movements, or economic developments. Social processes such as cooperation, competition, conflict, assimilation, and socialization describe ongoing interactions that shape collective life. As we close today's lecture, let's take a moment to reflect on the journey we've started. Today, we introduce the fascinating world of sociology. the scientific study of society and human relationships. We explored how sociology helps us see the connections between our personal lives and larger social structures through the sociological imagination. We learned about its origin with great thinkers like Auguste Comte, who laid the foundation for sociology as a science. We also examined the vast subject matter and scope of sociology, understanding the many areas it touches, from culture to institutions, socialization to inequality. Finally, we discussed key concepts like society, culture, norms, roles, and social groups that will be crucial as we go deeper with the discipline. In our last lecture, we will dive into sociological theories and perspectives, from functionalist to conflict theorist and symbolic interactionist, explain how society works and why it changes. As we continue, keep this thought with you. Your life is deeply connected to social forces greater than yourself. Developing your sociological imagination is not just academic, it's a tool to understand yourself, others, and the world. Thank you for joining this first step into sociology. I look forward to exploring more fascinating ideas with you in our next lecture.